for joining today's webinar, Coaching's on the Rise. My name is Lauren Parkhill, and I'll be your moderator, working behind the scenes during the presentation. We're here to give you the inside track on how coaching can be leveraged in organizations and to provide maximum impact. So as we move along, please feel free to send us your questions during the webinar, and we'll be sure to follow up by email if we don't have time to answer them during our time today. And we'll also be sending out you out the slides and recording by email within the next 24 hours. So on behalf of FlashPoint Leadership Consulting, I'd love to welcome everyone joining us today for Coaching's on the Rise. First, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our team. There we go. There's me, and here's Linda and Krista, Linda Dowson and Krista Skidmore. Both are experts here at FlashPoint on partnering with organizations to increase their leadership potential and have seen firsthand the value and impact of coaching in the workplace. So, hi all.
Hello.
Hello. I'm glad you're here. Before I turn it over to you two, let's take a quick second to tell the folks on the line about our firm. We're FlashPoint Leadership Consulting, a global leadership development and training company with offices in Indianapolis, Indiana, and Sonoma, California. We also have a presence in Arizona and San Diego, California. We deliver creative and measurable solutions that make leaders, teams, and organizations more effective. Our focus is on leadership development, team effectiveness, and coaching that create meaningful workplaces where everyone can achieve their fullest potential. So let's dive in. So if you're on this webcast today, you're probably into coaching just like we are. You'd probably agree that coaching is versatile and that it's multimodal. There's just lots of ways it can be implemented, and coaching is also very personal. It's impactful, and it has great potential to help leaders personalize and practice their leadership development efforts. And coaching can help ensure that leaders can achieve business outcomes at the highest level. So today, we're going to focus on 3 agenda items. Current trends and top uses for coaching, 5 trends and uses for coaching, ways you can leverage coaching inside and outside development programs, and what are the critical considerations that can help you maximize impact? So with that, I'll turn it over to my FlashPoint team, Linda and Krista.
All right, good afternoon, morning, wherever you are today. This is Linda, and we'll go ahead and get started with our first agenda item, which is on current trends, top uses for coaching, and that'll really set the scene for the ways that you can leverage coaching and some considerations you'll want to determine for its use. So just to get us started here, we're going to ask you to share with us your definition of coaching. And it might be a safe assumption that we're all working off the same definition, but sometimes we've got different perspectives about what it is. So just to make sure, we're going to ask you to share one word that you would use to describe coaching. And if you'll go ahead and go to the question panel, we'll go ahead and ask you to put that word in there. And then we'll kind of see, we'll have our group here identify some of those words that you used.
Love it. So great, depending on how you joined us today, you'll either want to open the attendee control panel, or you might be on the web version and you can just open that up and click on the question mark, type in your word as if you're asking a question, hit send, and we'll call those out in real time.
All right, thanks, Lauren.
Sounds good. They're starting to roll in here. Great. Inspiration, develop, discovery. I almost said thank you because someone said that too. Inspiration, empowerment, potential, internal awareness, positive, supporting, development, build trust, support, inquiry. Oh, cheerleader, I love that one. Accompaniment.
Great.
Sorry about the clicks on my mouse. Provoke. Oh, lovely. Insight, reflection. And, you know, that's it for the moment. Thanks so much, you guys. That was amazing. Encourage. We're just going to have to cut that one off. We're just, like, getting too many responses. Just kidding. We love it. We love it. So thanks for that, Linda.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And those are all great, great words that we use to describe coaching. And absolutely, we consider those as we think about coaching opportunities when we do coaching. And I'm just going to share with you here a definition from the International Coach Federation. And they're not using one word, but there are words you can see in there that they are using. So the definition is coaching is partnering with individuals in a thought-provoking, heard that word provoke earlier, and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. And coaches really do help people improve their performance and enhance the quality of their lives. And here's what the coach's job is. It really is to provide support to enhance the skills, resources, and creativity that leader already has. We've got a common definition of coaching, so we're just going to jump right into some trends and top uses for coaching.
Hey, hello everyone, this is Krista. Thanks for joining today. I'll start us off with our first trend, and that's that coaching is the most effective modality, yet it's the least frequently used. So you'll note here in the table on screen, the modalities are on the left, and then there's a column for use, so the amount of time organizations are using that modality, and then their rated effectiveness level. So you'll see, not surprisingly, maybe to many of you, that classroom is still king. According to this benchmarking study, it's chosen 22% more than any other modality. Yet, you can see the other highlighted number in the effectiveness column. Coaching is seen as more effective, and this is actually for the third consecutive year, while usage is 37% less common than classroom. So what does this data tell us? It tells us that L&D practitioners, they see the value and the impact of coaching, but that hasn't yet translated into usage. So why do I say it hasn't translated yet? Is because of the second trend, which is that coaching is seen as having a very unique function within all of our development modalities. So leadership coaching has become increasingly popular. Many of you know that you're using this as a tool to develop leaders, and for those of you who've studied coaching for a long time, it's a history that has evolved from sort of the old days of fixing a broken leader, but rather thinking about coaching as investing in the development of highly regarded and successful leaders by building on their strengths and helping to close some of those development gaps. So helping leaders reach for broader and more complex leadership roles is going to require preparation for unfamiliar and sometimes uncomfortable responsibilities. And so this necessitates that leader really understanding and practicing how to handle scenarios and situations that they're likely to face as they move through leadership levels over time and be promoted into new roles. And those scenarios or situations that they're going to face, it's much like an athlete or a musician who has to practice and prepare for a game or for a performance. So preparing leaders to address key decisions and situations that they face before they actually happen, and they actually have to face them, that helps them to develop what many in the field call leadership muscle memory, right? And that they will, again, be training themselves in many ways to react in a more favorable way under real life conditions, sort of in the field or on the job. And so because of coaching's very unique function, Sherm's study on developing the next generation of leaders predicts that coaching will grow and that leadership development will include a reliance on coaching to help prepare leaders to really face some of these, encounter some of these situations and experiences ahead of time, preparing for them versus fixing mistakes sort of later after they occur. So we wanted to get a sense from all of you in terms of how you're using coaching in your organization by participating in our next poll, which asks you to think about your organization's usage of coaching and how are you doing that as a part of regular leadership development offerings. So are you using that at the exec only level? Are you using that for all leaders? are you using, not using coaching right now, but maybe you have in the past? And then finally, maybe you're an organization who really has never used coaching as a part of your leadership offerings.
Great, Krista, I've gone ahead and opened that poll. And again, this is single choice. Does your organization use coaching as part of your leadership development offerings? And I can see the results are coming in. About 50% of you have voted. So real quick, pop your vote in there. That is open on your screen. Select one, yes for executive level, yes for other leader levels, not currently using, but we have in the past, or no, we've never used it. And perfect. All right, we're just about to close that out, and I'll love to share the results with you. I'll give you about 5 more seconds. Great. I'll go ahead and close that out, and we'll talk about those results. Okay. Does your organization use coaching as part? I'm part of your leadership development offerings. I'm showing that 51% of folks voted yes for other leaders levels, followed in a tie by yes for executive level only, and no, we've never used it. Those both came in at 17%, and then 14% not currently, but we have in the past. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is Linda.
Go ahead, Linda.
Oh, go ahead, Krista.
Yeah, I was just thinking through the data here, and actually, I think it very much reflects sort of what we're seeing, right, Linda, around sort of the usage shifting down further in the organization. So coaching being used for emerging leaders, high potentials, and other, as a part of other signature programs, even for like mid-level manager programs and director level programs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, lots of different levels of leaders, and I think we've seen a lot of more interest in it. It used to be just executives, you think about getting that, or somebody who had a performance issue, but now we're seeing that it's delivered, as you guys have indicated here, on different levels of leaders. It could be for everybody. So thank you for sharing that. And we'll go on to just talk then about trend number 3. And I don't know if you guys all remember, but when coaching first came out many, many years ago, we often used it for performance issues, right? But today it is so much more robust in the way that it's used. And in the last 5 years in particular, coaching has increasingly been positioned as a powerful, future-focused developmental approach for leaders at all levels. And that's really from this survey that was done in 2017. And not only is it shifting from that performance-related kind of engagements that happened to more developmental in nature, but it's also focused on preparing leaders for future roles, and it's being implemented at lower levels, as you guys just indicated, in the organization to develop leaders earlier in their careers. And the cool thing about coaching is that it really is focused, more focused than it's ever been before. And here you can see on the screen are some typical types of targeted coaching, which includes, first of all, the developmental focus to expand capabilities and prepare leaders for future roles. It's also used as an assessment, as in conjunction with an assessment. It's assessment focused. So we would administer an assessment and have a coaching conversation to provide those leaders greater self-awareness. And it's also is performance-based and focused to reduce some gaps and build capabilities in current roles. And often, like Krista said, it's often used when there's something that you're going to prepare for, that there may be some gaps currently. And internal coaching. That is also increasing as organizations see the benefit of coaching cultures on retention, engagement, and productivity. And it's also a way to scale coaching cost effectively, to have some internal coaches. And more we're finding that our clients are using that and more focused on building coaching skills of leaders, identifying some super users who are more skilled. I'm working with an organization right now. We did a coaching clinic to help the leaders to learn to be coaches. But then out of that, they identified some internal coaches that they're now using in their organization. So we're seeing that more and more. You want to build a culture of coaching. It's a great way to have that internal force going on as well. So these are some different ways in this trend that we see. And also, when we think about how it's being used, you can go ahead and flip the slide there. Yeah, so we also know that there's lots of different uses of coaching, and we've talked about some of these already that you can see on the screen. I'll also point out, increasing confidence and resilience. People sometimes don't even recognize the potential that they have within them, and through the coaching engagement, they get more confident about the things that they do and the things that they can do. Strengthening relationships, and certainly retaining top talent. It's often a benefit to have coaching for those that we see as top talent. And again, not for performance, it's because of the developmental opportunity that coaching provides. We'll go ahead and then look at trend 4 as well. And, there's lots of different situations that coaching can be applied to. And here's just some of the top 5 topics that are most frequently covered in coaching engagements. You can see the percentages there. But oftentimes it's not, well, you can see the number 1 thing listed here is leading teams and people development. How do we help our coaches and our leaders to be more effective with that? It is about executives and helping them with their presence and influencing skills. More and more we're seeing requests for coaching around strategic thinking and how do we help leaders to develop a vision, relationship management certainly, and then communication and presentation skills. So you probably have lots of different opportunities that you see for using coaching. These are the top 5 topics that from the survey were identified, and I'm sure a lot of that could resonate with you as opportunities for your leaders as well.
And, building on that, Linda, it's not surprising when we look at this trend number 5 that, coaching is impactful and change focused. It's not surprising then that we see, because of, many of the items that you shared in terms of frequency, focus within coaching engagements correlates to the top 5 goals that leaders set for themselves in coaching engagements. As we think about this trend maybe said in a slightly different way, coaching gets results, right? And, that, I think for us, our experience has been that we repeatedly see better outcomes from leadership programs when coaching is a part of the equation, whether that's in a big way or a small way. Leaders regularly report that coaching has a high level of impact, predominantly because these engagements are focused and they're goal-oriented. So as we enter in and see success in coaching engagements, we want to see that they're focused, that there's a target that leader is working toward and on. And so that's what's going to drive change, behavior change by the leader, and that's what makes, I think, coaching, because of the unique function it plays and in being so personally connected to the individual level versus maybe what we're doing in the classroom with a broader group of people. That's why we see that it's getting outcomes and that leaders see value in it. So wanted to talk a little bit more, just building on. Yeah.
Would it be okay if I posed a question from
sure.
our audience? Awesome.
Yes.
So, yay, sorry, I cut you off there. So the question is, are you finding that coaching engagements focus on change leadership?
Yeah, great question. I'll start, Linda, and then maybe you might want to add as well. So one of the things I would say just anecdotally across all the coaching engagements that we do is that this VUCA world, right? So the volatile, the uncertain, complex, and ambiguous nature of the workplace today is a context that leaders are leading in that's dynamic and changing and evolving. And I think my sense from leaders is that they feel they have a lot more on their plate than they ever have, and they're forced to move much more quickly and bring their teams along much more quickly than they've ever had to before. So those what change cycles in the 80s and the 90s look like, were much slower. And now those change cycles, what's happening in the business and the dynamic, sort of industry that you may be in, the organizational design that a leader is leading in, all of those things are forcing change, right? And so change leadership absolutely is a focus area. So it's usually moving from where I am now and how do I face a more dynamic context going forward? But Linda, what would you add?
Yeah, I would say definitely true. I was just talking to an organization yesterday that is going through a lot of mergers and acquisitions. So the people that are there she actually asked specifically about coaching for the leaders that are already there, but then also for the ones that are being integrated into the new company. So definitely that kind of impact, but also, things as simple as, well, I shouldn't say simple. Another company I was working with, we are working with is had some just restructuring within the organization. So that's a lot of change. And to the point we mentioned earlier about getting ahead of it, they identified before the change happened to identify some coaching opportunities for some of the leaders in the organization to help them to address that change as it went through. So absolutely great question, and definitely it's used in change management, because coaching is really all about change, and helping them through those kind of transitions is a great way to use coaching. So yeah, thank you for
Awesome.
that. And we've talked about, go ahead, please.
No, that's right. I was going to say we have a follow-up kind of comment question that actually kind of leads into our next slide, so I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought this was really interesting. In some cases, many leaders feel they can manage themselves through change. Only until pain is great will they be receptive to change management principles. So interesting thought, perhaps to think about for a moment, and then thank you for that question comment.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for those questions and comments. Appreciate that. And we just talked about the trends that are out there, and it's helpful to kind of set the stage then. Well, then with these trends, what's going on in our workplace? What are some other things we do? And Krista, I don't mean to cut you off, but I think we continue to go on to trend 5 here.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I appreciate that comment, because I think the impetus, what causes people to want to apply some of that change management theory into practice oftentimes does come through challenge. And I think that's like a part of a principle of leadership too, right? It's times when we are facing adversity that we have also the opportunity to show leadership in a bigger way. And so thanks for that. I think this sort of relates actually to kind of finishing off a couple of these trends that we're working on here in our agenda. Really, leaders, I think, are seeing coaching more positively too. And I don't always think that was the case. In the last, even I would say 10 years, coaching has had a varied history in most organizations that we work with. And sometimes it's not the right intervention for the right situation. And so, but what we're seeing more of, which you'll see in the data on the screen, is that this is really just to help you see the leader's actual evaluation of their coaching as an impactful tool. So we regularly here at FlashPoint aggregate data from the leaders that we coach, like sort of better understand how coaching engagements impact them, et cetera. And their viewpoints are obviously helpful in us getting a bird's eye view into the value of the engagement to them. And what we find is that they do view coaching as impactful because it really helps them make that change that we were just talking about. And maybe face some of the pain that's happening, whether that's turnover in their team or just stressful days, whatever that is. But getting everyone aligned is a big job, especially when that direction is shifting right under their feet. So what we see here is that leaders both understand and appreciate that coaching is a valuable opportunity for developing skills, making positive changes, and so on. But it also shows that leaders see value in what they gain in the sense of really recommending it and noticing some of the positive impact on their own behavior and skills. And that's just to put a fine point on this. This information on screen also shows you how the leaders who've gone through coaching engagements describe the outcomes or impacts of coaching on them as a leader. So these are organized by size. So the larger the circle, the more often the leader has noted it as an outcome they saw in their own work day to day. So you'll see everything from communication, developing others, building trust, greater sense of career clarity, and influence, right? Which at the core of it is really what leadership is showing influence, right?
Yep. Yeah. Good stuff. And it's always, it's about that, right? It's about those kind of outcomes that both the participant wants and how that supports the organization needs as well. So let's just jump right in. We talked about some of these different things that are happening in the world of coaching. And so we're going to shift our gears a little bit and learn more about the ways you can leverage coaching. And if you've got ideas, by the way, and comments, you can go ahead and put that in the question, the question thing there and share with us. But we want to share with you and some of these different ways. But before we jump right in, I want to emphasize how important it is to broaden our leadership development toolkit. And we want to have ways to make learning more experiential, to personalize the learning experience. And then apply and practice is fine. It's nice to have, but it's more than that, right? This is a must-have. And coaching is one of the ways that helps you to get there. So there are a number of methods that can be used to help you transform your leaders. And here are a few things to keep in mind as we go through this. So number one, no one tool can transform a leader. And we've probably seen it, tried to have that silver bullet for leadership development, but there's not one thing that helps. We have to look at all the things that are out there. Number two, think about how you can layer the appropriate tools to put together the right toolbox for each leader or the level of leaders. How do I connect the dots with everything? And then number three, think about your business context and what tools make the most sense for where your business is today. So we're going to talk specifically about how to leverage coaching, and there's lots of different ways to do that. So we're going to show you some here, and again, if you've got some things that you use, go ahead and share that with us. But here's the common ones. And gosh, we've kind of racked our brains for everything that could possibly be out there, but you've got something else, we'd like to hear it. So you can see the different ways to leverage coaching. Many of you, I'm sure, have used standalone coaching. If you've used it in the past or are currently using it, it's for an executive engagement, or it's for a particular skill gap that, like we mentioned earlier. Certainly coaching within a broader program, group coaching, and then team coaching, getting teams together to coach. You could leverage it using an outsourced provider of coaching, and coaching as part of a new leader simulation, coaching skill development, certification for super users, as I mentioned earlier, coaching with action learning projects. So lots of different ways to do that. And we're going to, rather than go over all of these different ways, we're going to just focus on three of them. And that's specifically number 2, number 3, and number 5. And we'll go into those in a little bit more detail. So before we do that, we want to know how your organization is leveraging coaching. So we're going to put this poll up, and you can choose all that apply in this case. So go ahead and do that. Take a few minutes to respond to that.
Awesome. I've gone ahead and opened that poll. How is your organization leveraging coaching? Votes are starting to come in, so thank you so much. Again, that's multiple choice, so good grief, you could probably be doing all of them. I noticed we didn't put none. Let us know in the chat if that's a none. But these are some great little polls to just kind of think about other ways you might leverage if you're not doing all of these currently. So we're about 40% voted. Give you a couple more seconds there, at least 15 more seconds, so folks have a chance to do that. Great. Almost done. Give you about 5 more seconds. And then I'll go ahead and close that poll and show you all the results. Thank you so much. All right, sharing those results. How is your organization leveraging coaching? 58% standalone is the top choice. And again, these are multiple, so it's not going to equal 100. 42% coaching within a broader development program, close second to 39% of group and team coaching. So that could be new leaders, action learning, other ways. And then kind of bringing up the rear, outsourced provider of coaching model and coaching skill development or certification for leaders. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is Linda. I'm loving using it within a broader development program because, like we said, no one tool works typically, and you've got to look at broadening that into other actions that you're taking with development for leaders. So love to see the the large number of people that are using that.
Yeah, and just this, Krista, just adding on, also 39% coming in using group and team coaching and things like new leader assimilation processes or action learning projects or things like that too, which is awesome. We're seeing a lot more of that, at least in the clients that we're working with as well. So that's great. Well, let's do this deep dive. So Linda mentioned we're going to cover 3 of them in a little bit more detail. So we'll start first with coaching and using that within a broader program, which it looks like many of you on the call are already doing, which is great. You know, a lot of the programs, you know, whether those are signature leadership programs that you offer in your organization, most of those that we see tend to be a little bit more focused on broad approaches, sort of field level topics in leadership. And coaching can be a great complement to that, to allow participants really to dive in specific areas that are unique to their own leadership challenges. So in one current coaching initiative that we're working on, we've met with a group of leaders in a more of a 2-day intensive workshop, and just to sort of talk through what this looks like. After that 2-day intensive workshop, the participants were given assessment data, some pretty robust assessment data, 360 data, that they around specific leadership behaviors. And what they were asked to do is really to work on and build a development plan based on their assessment data. And so while they each had attended the same exact intensive program, their individual development plans were very different. They each had their own flair. And so kind of speaking to the importance of personalization that we talked about earlier in our trends section. So with clients who are able to really combine that classroom content with coaching, we see that they get faster and more sustained outcomes. And, you know, this is because coaching helps to mitigate that loss of time, effort, investment, because it supports that learning retention that we all strive for, and as well as that behavior change that's so critical as leaders are working to more frequently demonstrate leadership behaviors in their own environment. So coaching also really, we see in terms of using it in this broader program, can help leaders with real-time feedback on the ways in which they're leveraging these new skills that they've learned, or the new knowledge perhaps that they've gained, whether that was through e-learning or through classroom or a combination of both. And we find that coaching really does drive more accountability because of how goal-focused it is, which we also talked about earlier, you know, in the trends. So coaches can really help leaders construct and make progress towards that personalized development plan, and they can also offer support and guidance, you know, as participants work on some of those ongoing challenges and successes that are naturally going to come up, right? When they go back to the real world, as we say, and try to apply these things, naturally things are going to pop up. And so having a sounding board, someone you can bounce ideas off of and work on trying different strategies, and having the courage and confidence to go after those, a coach can really help with. Now, I mentioned just a second ago in the previous example that each of these leaders had built their own development plan after this like 2-day intensive workshop. And the final point I want to make is that I didn't say that all of those were high quality plans. And so one of the things I think coaches can help with is really holding up the mirror, asking great questions, pulling out and pushing the leader to really think about their development plan in realistic and relevant terms, and really have a more usable plan that they can get outcomes around. Making sure that it's specific enough, that they've identified the resources they need to be successful, that they understand how their manager needs to support in the process, and so on. So just to give you a bit of a visual here on coaching within a broader program, you'll see on screen an example of a global manufacturing program that we designed. And you can see it's a 12-month program. You'll see across the top, months 1, 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 7, and so on. You'll see that it starts with a kickoff webinar, goes into a 360 assessment. And you can see here then that where coaching starts to pop in, right? So individual sessions. So right after I received that 360 feedback that I was talking about, how do I approach that? How do I interpret it? What does this mean for me? Having a coach to work with those individuals one-on-one, extremely helpful. Then they go into more of their on-site intensives with some refresher webinars, and then you'll see individual coaching pop back in here as well. Now that I've had a chance to really gain some new information, think about some new skills, new behaviors I need to apply, what does that mean to me? How does this change my development plan? Is there anything I would add? What could I practice in the next few months that might help me sort of move the needle? And going through a second on-site training with some other follow-up, you'll see a reassessment of that 360. So this is answering the question, did I move the needle over the last 12 months? From a pre to post perspective, what behavior change did I see? Where did I make progress? And where are my next set of opportunities as I continue on this leadership journey? You'll see wrapped around this whole thing at the bottom is a reinforcement program called MindMarker that we use that really pushes out bite-sized micro-learning to keep leaders focused. So you can see the variety of modalities that we talked about earlier, right? You're seeing everything from classroom to coaching to assessments to reinforcement to webinars, so lots of different options, but they're configured and arranged and sequenced in a way that really help that leader process and make change over time. So just an example there of how coaching can fit within, a broader program.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, and Krista, I was just going to say around that what you were seeing on that previous screen is really representative of a lot of the most successful leader development programs because of all the different modalities. And I would say that coaching typically will have the biggest impact when we get feedback on what was beneficial to the program. That's one of the best learnings. And I'll tell you, it doesn't have to be individual, of course. It could also be group coaching. And I'm working now with an organization where we have 4 different sessions over a 12-month period, and we're looking at outcomes in terms of, we're at the halfway point now. We're saying, well, on your IDP that you've been working on, where's your progress? Let's talk about that so we can measure the success of the coaching and their individual application of some of those things. And it's been really good conversations. But let's talk more about group coaching as our other item we want to dive into a little bit deeper. And that feels like a good segue because, again, you can use that in your broader programs. And, participants of the programs, you can see here the different benefits that they see. But they do often note that group coaching is a productive space in order for them to explore some issues, bounce ideas off of each other, help them to focus. I had one group today tell me that it's about focusing on where they're going. Group coaching also allows for enhanced networking, kind of support of each other. Participants build their capacity and ability to initiate new relationships and to really build their network, which is huge. It's also useful to help with the development of new ideas and approaches because the group coaching participants often share resources with each other during and in between the group coaching sessions. And I guess what makes group coaching work so well is that the group has a shared experience, and it provides a natural support system to encourage one another in pursuing their development plans, their goals, the action items associated with that. And that shared experience enhances camaraderie. And I hear this so often, they realize the problems they face are not as unique as they may have previously believed, like other people have these same problems. And they leverage that experience and insight of others to solve problems, to come up with solutions, to address challenges. So they're able to learn from the mistakes of others and to multiply their own application of the information. And that multiplied learning typically extends beyond the formal coaching meetings and gives participants greater confidence to make decisions and to move forward. So great benefits of that. And so, so how does this work? Like, how does group coaching work? And here's some aspects of the structure of group coaching. You can see smaller groups is typically going to be the most beneficial. One of the groups I'm working with has 20 participants, and we've got them in groups of 4 to 5 each. So smaller groups are going to be better for application and discussion. And then any group or intact team, it could include any group of individuals or an intact team. So you could say it's a group of people that are working in one location or are an intact team, or it could be cross-functional. It could be a group that's going through the program together and they're just working cross-functionally. 6 to 12 months, the frequency is typically monthly. A couple of groups I'm in is every other month we're doing it. But so if there's deadlines or something else going on, you could do it more frequently, but that's typically what it is, 1 to 2 hours in length. And then it could be virtual. In fact, the ones that I do are all virtual, but it could be in person as well. And so it really depends. It could be over the phone, whatever. And then really to have that coach. So I just want to say that that's an important part. You could get a group together and give them some action items to discuss. And by the way, that some of the group coaching groups that I'm working with do have their separate meetings with each other without a coach. But that coach helps to bring it all back to the application, to give them like a path to move forward, to ask those questions where there may be some progress issues. So an important part of that throughout the process. And then again, as we talked earlier, can be integrated into a longer term development process, or it could be standalone. With some groups, it's just, let's get this group going in the right path. And it could be used in that way as a development tool as well. So that's group coaching. And again, some great benefits there. And let's then look at the third thing that we're going to dive into, the third and last thing we're going to dive into, and that's this outsourced provider of coaching, which it looked like many of you use and leverage that. So the benefits of that is, first of all, a common approach and process from that outsourced provider. So when we say process, we're thinking of things like, here are the steps for the engagement. So for example, one of the things we recommend is that a common approach is that the very first session is around meeting with the participant, the leader, also meeting with the coach, and a third party is there, which includes the leader's manager, just to be clear about what the outcomes are expected. So that's a suggested approach, first step of the process. But then the process is really defined further from there about how often we're going to meet, what the check-ins will be, what kind of recaps are going to be done, what the actions are. So when you have an outsourced provider that has a process that they're using, it makes it common and consistent throughout the organization. In addition, having institutional knowledge over time adds value to the participants. So just the fact that outsourced providers are doing it with other organizations is getting more knowledge about how to make this the most effective. That's value to the participants. Saves you guys, the organization, time and energy, recruiting and managing a diverse group of coaches. And I just want to mention there that one of the things we recommend, again, is to, as much as possible, you want to match the coach to that leader. And so having a process that we use is going through and providing different options for coaches before one is selected, because we want to make sure that that relationship is so important, especially in an individual coaching situation. And then your outsourced provider can also provide aggregate data reporting on outcomes. So all those outcomes we're looking to achieve, you can get those from that third party doing that. And of course, we have lots of very specific ways that we do that as well. So really that partner firm who can help you, when you think about that partner firm is really going to help you to select the right type of engagement for each unique situation that you've got going on, and they are all unique, right? And then it's also enables you, that partner can help to see how this connects to other leadership development or succession processes, and whatever you've got already going on, how do we make sure that that coaching aligns with what your goals are for that program, and how does it connect to everything else you're doing to support leaders? And also, really, the ability to adjust quickly and respond to just-in-time needs as they arise is also another benefit, where you've got an outsourced provider that can really help you with that. So anything you want to add to that, Krista?
Yeah, I think it's a great overview. If there are any comments from participants that are using it, if there's any comments you want to offer the group, feel free to do that in the questions pod. But yeah, for me, what I hear around this all the time is that various departments, plants, divisions, locations are all using different resources, and there's not a lot of centralized structure and reporting back on what the outcome is for all of that investment. that's being made. And so I think that, to me, the outsourced provider really, sort of, it doesn't mean that you're outsourcing in the sense of you have to follow a set process, but it's about co-creating that process with the client organization. What works for you, what model of coaching would fit best. So I think oftentimes when we think of outsourced provider, it feels like you're just like handing the whole thing over to someone else, and like in a recruitment process outsourcing or RPO model or something. And that's really not what this is. This is about a deep and strong partnership that's a coaching approach and process that works for your organization, your culture, your leaders' challenges, that you're monitoring and reviewing and improving and enhancing over time. So yeah, so it's one that's on the rise for obvious reasons around measurement and impact of coaching. And I know lots of organizations still handle it in a very different way. So as we look at kind of, if you can believe it or not, we're on our third of 3 agenda items for the webinar today, and that's the critical considerations to maximize impact. So, we've talked so far that, coaching has a lot of unique properties as a modality. We've talked about the fact that it's viewed as a highly effective modality within your larger leadership development process. We've talked about the fact that both leaders and practitioners see a lot of value in it. So, right, we talked about how highly impactful coaching is from the leader's viewpoint, and various ways that you can leverage that in your organization. And so, when we move to agenda item 3 here, we're really talking about like what's going to make that participant successful in the coaching engagement, what's going to make that leader successful. And so no matter really what you're doing with coaching, so obviously there's so many options and decisions related to this topic. I mean, many of these segments that we've covered could be their own webinar for sure. And it's not a one-size-fits-all in very different contexts. And so whether you're considering the level of leader that you're applying coaching to, making sure you layer the right components together, like Linda was talking earlier, you thinking about budget and resources and time investment, the skills you're trying to build, maybe even the previous experiences your organization's had with coaching, the outcomes you're trying to achieve with leaders, right? Coaching can be a fit, but regardless of the context, one of the things that we want to leave you with is there are ingredients here to a successful coaching engagement, and whether that's in a group or an individual setting or in a program or in another method, we wanted to share with you 3 things that the Harvard Business Review in their recent article has talked about as the top 3 ingredients for successful coaching relationships. And so you'll see one is that the leader is highly motivated to change and be engaged and committed to the process, that there's 2, good chemistry with the coach and that relationship of trust is present. And 3, that there's strong commitment from the top, and that doesn't mean just like that person's one up. That means the support system of HR, learning and development, executive team, etc. So we want to just take you through a couple of things through our experiences in each of these 3 areas, and then we'll close out. So the first one we'll start with is around what can you do to ensure that this number 1 ingredient is there, so that the participant is engaged and willing and motivated to be a part of the process. And so I mentioned earlier that the first thing you can do is make sure coaching is actually the correct intervention, right? Make sure that what you're trying to solve for, that coaching is actually what's going to help drive that leader forward. And second, how you talk to them about the coaching engagement, how you frame it, what the focus areas are going to be, so that the leader has a sense for what they're to be working on, the desired growth or behavior change that you're looking for, or perhaps if it's for developing them for a future role, it's like, well, what skills or competencies or areas of focus do I need to be doing more of? And how can this coaching engagement help me with that? Involving the participant is huge. And so one of the things that we do, as well as other organizations, is get the participant engaged in selecting their coach. It's one of the first things you can do outside of framing it correctly and making sure it's the right intervention to begin with. It's one of the most important things you can do to drive willingness and engagement in the process. And we've developed a meet and greet process where we have a cadre of coaches that a leader will choose between, interview, using a set of guidelines that we provide them, the opportunity to really talk to a couple of coaches before they endeavor on this relationship. And that has a couple of purposes. First, it's about ensuring their willingness and their motivation in the process, right? And as Linda will talk about, it also has a benefit to chemistry, ensuring that chemistry is there too. And then, you know, ultimately, another way that we can be sure we're highly motivated in the process, the leader is to show the participants the ways in which they'll be supported. So one of the things that that we have in the majority of our coaching engagements is that the one-up, the manager of that leader coaching participant, is involved at key touch points throughout the coaching engagement. You know, a coach is not a surrogate manager, right? The manager still needs to be the manager, driving performance of that individual, ensuring accountability, and so on, helping to frame what the focus areas for the engagement should be. So that one-up plays a role. And then oftentimes the person's HR business partner or talent development representative is also engaged in the process to provide that extra layer of support. If during the process of coaching it's identified that there are other development resources that need to be we need to connect that leader to, having a talent development partner close to the process can help ensure that that really happens. The other thing that we've found is anything we can do to help raise the self-awareness of the leader in the process. Once a leader, for example, receives 360 feedback through an assessment, that also can create a sense of momentum and a motivation to first understand themselves, but also to then improve maybe the perception of themselves as a leader and work toward that. So assessments can provide some motivation to change as well in the process.
Yeah, so all good things in that first step is how do you help them to be motivated? And then secondly, we're just going to emphasize this good chemistry with the coach is so critical to having a successful engagement. And again, just here it is again, involving participants in selecting their coach, giving them some options for who's going to help to move them forward, and then working with highly qualified and experienced coaches. You know, there's so many that are out there, and it's finding the right person, and at the same time, good chemistry with that person is great, personalities match and all that, but also just experience of going through that process and knowing some of the bumps that will happen along the way and how to deal with those. And so having an experienced person that has a process that's used and is credible, authentic, certified, committed, and passionate are all great things to think about in your coaches. Of course, confidentiality parameters around that for all players, like what are we going to share with the one-up, what are we going to share with others, and so really establishing that, whatever that looks like, and sticking to those, of course, is important for that chemistry and trust between the leader and the coach. And then focused roles and agreements between the coach and participant, and really identifying that right away at the very beginning. What is the goal? What are the outcomes when we're done with this? What is going to be some of the things that are going to be different and changed and so forth. So just helping to create that relationship and conversation with that coach really helps to make this a successful engagement. And then again, just strong commitment from the top, and can see here, we all agree, and again, not just the one-up, but from the organization, that coaching is an option and a way to help leaders to be stronger. And so involving the boss, the one-up in the kickoff, periodic check-ins, we talked about that. Ensuring the one-up doesn't use the coach, as Krista mentioned earlier. Defining what success looks like, and what are the parameters for success and what it's going to look like at the end, and then providing tools to support the coaching, such as the assessments we've talked about, certainly action plans, and then access and direction and guidance to other training offerings. So having all of these things, these three things, is part of making that a successful engagement. So guys, thank you. And we're going to see if we've got any additional questions in just a minute here, but I just want to wrap up and say thank you on behalf of Krista and I for being with us today. And again, this is what we talked about, some trends that'll help to set the stage of how coaching is used today and what is necessary, ways that you can leverage coaching inside and outside your development programs, and some considerations so that you really maximize the impact. I want to thank you once again for participating today. I'm going to turn it back over to Lauren.
Thank you so much. So we're actually quite close to the top of the hour. So if folks have any questions, you're welcome to send them, but we may not get to them today. But if you type those in right now, we'd be happy to follow up by email. But what I really like to ask you to do is, as you exit out of the webinar today, do take a moment to fill out the survey. That's really important to us, to take our own medicine, get your feedback, and also tell us what you liked about this webinar. So here's our contact details on the screen, our website, how you can reach us. And then if you want to go ahead and push one slide forward, I'll tell you a little bit about our events and programs coming up. So our next webinar, November 28th, this is going to be, Krista, is it our fourth or third annual? We're doing top trends in leadership development.
Third annual.
I believe it's the third annual. So this is an awesome survey of the trends impacting leadership in 2019, so now and beyond. So fantastic webinar. You can visit our website, flashpointleadership.com, actually /events is our events area. You can sign up for those. And then very importantly, our next Leadership Challenge workshop programs are coming up in Scottsdale, Arizona this November. This is one of the most impactful ways to develop leaders in your organization. The workshop is 2 days. 5 and 6, November 5th and 6th, and then that's followed by an optional facilitator training, and then secondly, optional LPI coach training. So we're actually the #1 provider of Leadership Challenge worldwide, a very well-known a business program that a lot of folks who take master's degrees in business learn about that book in their program, but we actually offer that workshop, which is a research-based, amazing workshop and way to develop leaders. So do check that out, and we're registering for that currently. So we would love to see you there. Anything else? I have a couple questions that came in. Yes, we will absolutely be providing the slides and recording within 24 hours. So please do look for that. And yeah, I think that's all we got. Any comments from Krista and Linda? Anything you'd like to add?
Nope. I think just any questions, we'll get to them and send out responses afterwards that we weren't able to cover.
Absolutely. All right, we're getting a lot of thank yous coming in, so I'm not seeing any big questions coming in, so I think I'll go ahead and close it out today. I really want to thank our presenters, of course, Krista and Linda. Thank you. You guys did an awesome job. I learned a lot just sitting here in the peanut gallery.
Great. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Yeah, great feedback from our audience. Thank you so much. And again, we'll be following up shortly with the slides and recording. So I'll go ahead and say goodbye and have an awesome rest of your week. Bye-bye.